Hi everybody, I'm John Lincoln with Ignite Visibility and welcome to the Learning SEO with Ignite Visibility video series. Today, we're going to talk about international SEO, translating your website into different languages and getting ranked in different countries. This is one of my favorite things to do. I've written a lot of different blog posts, guides on this, and helped a lot of websites go international, go multilingual and multi-regional, and I'm super excited to be talking to you about this today. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a long time. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So first things first, what is international SEO? Well, multilingual means that we're translating your website into different languages and getting your website ranked in different language versions of Google, right? So Google has different versions for each specific language and for each specific country. And there's a lot of opportunity there, right? In developing countries or just in different languages. If you translate your website into a different language, then you just doubled the amount of potential customers that could come to your site, right? English is the biggest language. Spanish is the second biggest, right? So if you're not in Spanish, there's a huge opportunity there. Also, multi-regional is basically looking at different countries, right? So there's different country versions of Google, and if you get ranked in a different country, there's a big opportunity to get more traffic, more sales from that area, and that's exactly why you would do that, right? So why would you go international? Why would you do international or multilingual, multi-regional SEO? For traffic, revenue, leads, sales, and also to help users, right? So if you want to have a better user experience for your website, then you're going to want to make sure that you're offering your content that aligns specifically to the region and that aligns specifically to the language of your customers. As your website grows, as your business grows, your users are going to want to get that information in the way that they're most used to digesting. So is it a good idea? Well, before you jump in and try to just go international, think about a couple things first. First, you have the infrastructure, right? So if you're going to try to get ranked in Spain, does your business determine that you need people on the ground in Spain, right? That's something to think about. What are the shipping costs going to be? If you're an e-commerce site, shipping costs can be huge, right? I have a couple clients and they have very, large products, and to ship them across seas, that's a big deal. It's a huge expense, really cuts into their margins. So things to think about, right? Do you have the staff to support a different language, right? Or to support a different country? And what are your online abilities? And what I mean by that is, if you're going to translate your website into an entire different language and you have a 100,000 page site, think how many pages and how much content that you need to translate in order to make your new site look as good as your current site, right? So there's a lot that goes into that, right? So there's automatic translation systems that will allow you to push your website live into a new language. But half the time the grammar's messed up, it doesn't really read well. You have to have somebody go through and manually kind of check all that stuff. And it's still never quite as good as if you would have translated each page manually, right? So take the English version or the Spanish version or whatever language you're in first, take that, send that to a translation company translates it, gives it back to you, you do the keyword assignment, make sure that it's all optimized well for SEO, push it live on your site, right? So think about all that. If you have a big site, it's a huge challenge. I've worked with a lot of sites to help them do that. If you have a little site, it's actually much easier. So getting started. Now what I want to do is kind of get into just the search engine optimization aspect of this. And there's actually a lot to know, and it's going to get fairly technical. So let's dive into it. So first thing, you want to make sure that the content is visible on the page and the language is obvious, right? So just like there's cloaking in normal search engine optimization, there can be the same type of thing for international. So what people have tried to do is kind of hide content to get it ranked in different versions of Google and things like that in different language versions. So you want to make sure that your content is visible on the page when the user lands there, or when Google lands there, or if somebody from the Google manual review team lands there, they can see that right away. You also need to make sure that the content for each language is on its own URL. Okay, so that's really important. So if you're new to this, one of the most important things to think about is, you've got your English page, your Spanish page, right? You've got your English Ireland page, you've got your Spanish Spain page, right? And I'm going to talk about that more in a second and kind of how all of that rolls out. But there's actually quite a bit that goes into it. Also, where is your server located? So this is a little bit of an older thing, but Google used to look quite a bit at the server location, and then that would influence your rankings, right? So if your server is located where your website's being delivered from in Ireland, that could have a propensity in order to have you rank better in Ireland. But really nowadays they don't look at that quite as much, and they're looking more at the geo settings and some of these other settings I'm going to talk about in a moment, but the geo settings that you have in Google Search Console. Google Search Console is the place where you submit your website. You can set your geo settings there so that Google knows specifically that this is a US site, a UK site, a Canada site, things like that. So now let's get into URL structure. And this is actually probably one of the most important parts, also one of the most heavily debated parts. But what you want to decide is, are you going to go country specific with your domain? Are you going to do a subdomain, right? us.example.com, or are you going to do a subdirectory, example.com/US? What you don't want to do is URL parameters. So you don't want to do example.com something, whatever, right? You want to have clean URL structure. Now, country specific is actually a very, very good option. And a lot of people go for this, especially if you're just going to be in one country. Now, what I will say is that there's a little bit of an issue with this. So in the US, people actually give more credibility generally to a .com domain opposed to a .us, right? Now, if you're in Canada, however, a .ca is actually what Canadians look for, right? They would rather convert on a .ca. Also, .com.uk is what people look for inside of the UK. So there's subtleties to different countries, right? What the natives and the people who live in those countries are actually looking for. So make sure you do a little bit of research before you jump in and go a country-specific domain name extension. Also, when it comes to subdomains, those are generally a pretty good option. Subdomains can be very clear to the users. What I don't like about subdomains is from search engine optimization, and what I don't like about TLD that are country specific is that these are basically looked at independently from Google, right? So a .us or us.example.com, those are basically looked at as independent sites. But if you use a subdirectory, which is example.com/us, example.com/es, or something like that, everything kind of adheres to the one domain, right? So you got to think of that from a content perspective and an external linking perspective, right? So if you have a whole bunch of pages, right, that fall underneath this directory and all the other directories that you have, all of those are going to belong to this one main domain, add to the credibility of the site, assuming those are good pages. That's a good thing. Also, if you have a lot of external links all pointing at example.com, that's going to be more powerful than a lot of external links pointing at subdomains or at individual domains that you have for each of your countries. And of course, stay away from URL parameters. So these are some things that you need to watch out for, okay? And there's a bit. So first thing is your content must be unique. So if you make for an example, if you make a page for Ireland, Canada, and Australia, and it all has the exact same content, right? Nothing's kind of different about it. Google might not rank those pages individually, right? So what Google really wants is they want to see content that's specific to each country and specific to each language. Now, if it's not, and if it's the same content and you just kind of map it together in a way I'm going to show you in a moment, then they might not rank it. And I've actually seen this with a couple clients. So you can't necessarily kind of game the system in that way, unfortunately. It might work like 20 to 50% of the time. The other amount, it won't work. So I wouldn't take that chance. You want to make sure that everything matches. So what I mean by that is, one of the things that you have to do is put into place hreflang tags. So hreflang tags are something that you put inside of the code of the website. It's pretty simple. Google looks at it and other search engines, and they know that this page matches this page in this language. This page matches this page in this language. This page matches this page in this language, right? So you want to make sure that everything matches correctly And you also want to make sure that you have the correct language codes. So what I mean by that is EN is a language code for English, right? ES is a language code for Spanish. So you got to make sure that those codes line up correctly as well. Also, you need to be careful with local aware content. So if Google comes in, right, and they're redirected to an area that doesn't match up correctly, they could index that incorrectly. So really be careful and make sure, really the main thing that you need to keep in mind is that you want to treat Google just like you would treat a user. And if you do that, you won't have any issues with the local aware content, the indexing. And then also on the language perspective, you also need to be careful with that. So if Google's coming in and you're just automatically redirecting them to a specific language, that could kind of mess with your rankings a little bit. So be very careful to make sure that you point them in the right direction. Also, what a lot of people think is, oh, I'm just going to make all these pages. I'm just going to launch them in, this different language in this different country. I'm going to get ranked and just start making a ton of money. There's a chance that might happen. But what I'll tell you is after you get that initial push, and Google kind of indexes and pushes the pages up to the top, checks them, and then they settle down in their normal location. You're going to need to do some marketing, just like you would a normal SEO campaign, right? So you're going to need to make sure that you have an external linking strategy and you do all the normal SEO items, right? All the normal ones that you need to do for your main website. So you need to be building links, fresh content, potentially blogging, doing content marketing, right? These other countries, some of them are competitive spaces, right? Other ones are actually much easier. So there is some easier opportunities there. It all kind of depends on the country. And kind of the last thing and the way that I'd like to take this home is we've got these hreflang tags, and that's actually a big part of this optimization. So you can take these tags and you can put them inside of your sitemap, or you can put them in the head section of your page. You can also put them in the HTTP header, right? So these are your options here. So you can do a language sitemap. You can put in the HTTP header only for a non-HTML page though. And for the HTML pages, you can also put them in the head section. Generally, inside of the HTML and the head section is kind of your best option, but the sitemap is, I think, the easiest because you just generate this file and push it live. Now what happens is if you have a website that's changing a lot and your sitemap's not changing a lot, then things get kind of goofy and don't get ranked correctly, so you'll want to watch out for that. But let's jump back into this. So this would be an example hreflang optimization. So what you have here is English Ireland, English Canada, English Australia, and then you have just straight English, right? And these would be actual pages on your website. And then this is what we call the X default. What X default means is that out of all of these pages, the X default is the main page that we want to set as the default, right? So all other things gone, if Google, you get confused, this is kind of our default page for everyone, right? But this is our page for English Ireland. This is our page for English Canada. This is our page for English Australia. This is just our English page, and this is our X default page. So you would take this code and you would list this code on every single one of these pages, right? So the Ireland page, the Canada page, the Australia page, the main English page, and then the X default page, right? So if you have this code on every single page, then Google will know that all these pages are connected, and it will know that that's how that they correspond together. Again, you can also put this in your sitemap or the HTTP header, but only if it's a non-HTML page, which would be like a PDF or something like that. So this is International SEO, and this is just kind of, a couple things to think about. There's a lot to this topic, but it's a lot of fun, a lot of big opportunity there. Helped a lot of sites do it, and I gotta tell you, there's nothing more fun than, recently we had this client, we pushed him into 27 different countries, 27 different languages. They had an increase in traffic of 8,000% and an increase in leads of 5,000%. And that was going from an already good level to a much better level. So super exciting topic, and I'm so glad that you had a chance to come and learn with me today, and I can't wait to see you for the next video. So have a great day and see you soon.